In a bold and unapologetic stand against the entrenched injustices of the global system, African leaders are awakening to the clarion call of Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. From the dusty streets of Ouagadougou to the bustling cities of Lusaka, a seismic shift is underway, a movement rooted in the unyielding demand for justice, dignity, and self-reliance. African nations are no longer content to be pawns in a world order that exploits their people and plunders their resources. Leading this charge is Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema, whose recent shocking demand for the European Union, EU, and the United Kingdom, UK, to refund African nations for non-refunded visa application fees has sent ripples across the continent and beyond. This is not just a policy stance. It is a declaration of war against exploitative practices that have long bled Africa dry. President Hichilema's bold declaration has laid bare a scandal that has long festered in the shadows of global bureaucracy. In 2024, African countries collectively hemorrhaged a staggering $67.5 million, approximately 60 million euros, in non-refunded Schengen visa fees, with an additional $59 million siphoned off by the UK's visa system. These figures are not just numbers. They represent the hopes, aspirations, and hard-earned savings of African citizens, many of whom face rejection rates as high as 40–50% for Schengen visas, particularly in nations like Ghana, Senegal, and Nigeria. It is unacceptable that our citizens lose significant sums of money on unsuccessful applications, Hichilema thundered in a statement that reverberated across the continent. His demand for a fairer system, one where fees are refunded for rejected applications, is a direct challenge to a global order that has profited from Africa's marginalization for far too long. This is not just about money. It is about justice, dignity, and the right of Africans to be treated as equals on the world stage. Imagine what $70 million could do for Africa. Picture schools rising in rural villages, hospitals equipped with state-of-the-art facilities, roads connecting communities, and industries buzzing with local talent. Imagine an Africa where leaders reject the beggar's mentality, where they stop chasing foreign aid at endless summits and instead invest in the boundless potential of their own people. Hichilema's call is a rejection of the status quo, a refusal to accept a system that exploits African dreams while offering nothing in return. It is a rallying cry for leaders to look inward, to harness the continent's wealth of talent, resources, and ingenuity, and to build a future where Africa stands tall, unapologetic, and unafraid. At the forefront of this revolution is Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 37-year-old leader of Burkina Faso, whose fearless vision is transforming his nation and inspiring a continent. Traoré is not just a leader, he is a symbol of defiance, a man who has dared to challenge both Western and Eastern powers and chart a path of radical self-reliance. His message is clear and uncompromising. Africa's talent must stay home. No longer will the continent's brightest minds be lured away to Israel, Germany, Saudi Arabia, or other nations, only to face exploitation, discrimination, or worse. In a speech that shook the foundations of African leadership, Traoré declared, "The imperialist has always drawn several talents from here through scholarships and they never return home. I do not want this brain to end up abroad and not serve the country." His words were a scathing rebuke of leaders who have allowed Africa's youth to be siphoned off by promises of a better future abroad, only to see them risk their lives crossing treacherous seas or endure dehumanizing treatment in foreign lands. Traoré's revolution is not built on empty promises. In Burkina Faso, he is creating thousands of jobs, transforming every sector with an influx of young dynamic talent. Textile factories are springing to life, producing high-quality, made-in-Burkina Faso goods that rival global standards and reduce reliance on imported products. Agricultural initiatives are empowering farmers to not only feed the nation but also export surplus, bolstering the economy and proving that Africa can sustain itself. Infrastructure projects, from roads to public buildings, are being led by local engineers and labourers, demonstrating that Africans can build their own future without foreign contractors. Traore's government is investing heavily in institutions that offer better pay, training and opportunities, ensuring that Burkina Faso's best and brightest have every reason to stay home. This is a leader who understands that Africa's strength lies not in foreign aid, but in its people, its innovators, its workers, its dreamers. In a blistering critique that spared no one, Traoré lectured his fellow African leaders without an ounce of fear. "Stop being puppets for foreign countries," he warned, his voice cutting through the complacency that has long plagued the continent's leadership. He called out the backward thinking that assumes Africans cannot match or surpass the West, a mindset that has led governments to sign exorbitant contracts with Chinese firms to build roads, bridges and cities while sidelining their own talent. In Burkina Faso, Traoré is proving otherwise. Local firms are being empowered to take on major infrastructure projects, delivering quality work at a fraction of the cost. A new highway connecting Ouagadougou to Bobo-Dioulasso, for example, was built by Burkinabe engineers at half the price quoted by foreign contractors, and it has become a symbol of what Africa can achieve when it believes in itself. This is not just economic sense, it is a statement of pride. A refusal to accept the lie that Africa's capabilities are inferior. The mistreatment of Africans abroad is a wound that Traoré refuses to ignore. From the dehumanizing conditions faced by African workers in Gulf countries to the systemic racism endured in Europe, the stories are heartbreakingly familiar. African nurses, engineers and academics who secure visas often find themselves relegated to menial jobs, underpaid and undervalued. Others risk their lives crossing the Mediterranean in rickety boats, chasing a dream that too often ends in tragedy. People of Africa cross the sea, and others even die going to look for a better future in the West, Traoré said, his voice heavy with both sorrow and resolve. He recounted the stories of young Africans who have drowned in the Mediterranean, their bodies washing ashore as a grim reminder of the cost of desperation. He spoke of the indignities faced by those who make it to Europe, only to be treated as second-class citizens, their skills overlooked and their dignity trampled. "If our leaders could only wake up, this could not have happened," he declared, placing the responsibility squarely on those who have failed to invest in Africa's potential. Traoré's revolution is unstoppable, and it is no surprise that he is celebrated across Africa and beyond. African youth, in particular, have found in him a leader who embodies their aspirations. On platforms like X, young Africans from Nigeria to Kenya are sharing videos and stories of Burkina Faso's transformation, from new factories to revitalized farmlands, as evidence that Africa can thrive without relying on the West or East. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is showing what good governance should look like, one Zambian commenter wrote, capturing the sentiment of a generation tired of empty promises. Another user from Ghana posted, "He's building a nation where young people have jobs, hope and pride. This is the Africa we want." Traoré's leadership has sparked a movement, a revolution that is inspiring a generation to demand more from their governments and to believe in the power of their own continent. Contrast this with the endless cycle of African leaders jetting off to summits in Europe, Asia and America, returning with little more than photo ops and vague promises. These trips, often funded by taxpayer money, have become symbols of a beggar's mentality, a belief that Africa's salvation lies in the hands of foreign powers. Traoré rejects this outright. "We don't need to beg," he declared in a speech that electrified his audience. "Africa has everything it needs, talent, resources and vision. What we lack is leaders with the courage to act." His words are a stinging indictment of those who prioritize foreign approval over domestic progress, who attend summit after summit, while their people languish in poverty. If African leaders could redirect the energy spent on these trips toward empowering their own people, the continent could create millions of jobs, harness its vast resources, and build a future that rivals any in the world. The visa fee scandal is just one symptom of a deeper malaise, a global system that profits from Africa's marginalization. The Largo Collective, a London-based research group, has exposed the inbuilt discrimination and bias in the Schengen visa process, where African applicants face rejection rates far higher than those from other regions. In 2024, countries like Ghana, Senegal and Nigeria saw rejection rates of 40–50%, with no refunds for the costly application fees. This is not just a financial loss, it is a humiliation, a reminder that African lives and aspirations are too often deemed unworthy by Western gatekeepers. Hichilema's demand for refunds is a bold step toward dismantling this system, but it is Traoré who is showing the way forward by building a nation that does not need to beg for visas or validation. The contrast between Traoré's Burkina Faso and the status quo in much of Africa is stark. While some leaders continue to sign deals with Chinese firms to build infrastructure at inflated costs, Traoré is empowering local talent to take charge. His initiatives have created thousands of jobs in Burkina Faso, from textile workers producing vibrant Faso Damfani fabrics to engineers designing sustainable irrigation systems. Young people are flocking to these opportunities, filling every sector with energy and innovation. In the agricultural sector, for instance, Traoré's government has launched programs to modernize farming techniques, providing young farmers with access to training, equipment and markets. The result is a boom in local production, with Burkina Faso now exporting millet, sorghum and cotton to neighbouring countries, reducing dependence on foreign imports. In the industrial sector, Traoré's policies are equally transformative. New factories are being built to process raw materials like shea butter and gold, ensuring that Burkina Faso reaps the full economic benefits of its resources rather than exporting them raw to foreign companies. These factories are staffed by young Burkinabe, many of whom were trained through government-sponsored vocational programs. In the construction sector, local firms are taking on projects that were once the domain of foreign contractors, building schools, hospitals and roads with a level of efficiency and pride that has silenced skeptics. "We don't need the Chinese or the West to build our country," Traoré said in a recent address. "We have engineers who can design bridges, architects who can plan cities, and workers who can make it happen. All we need is the will to trust in ourselves." This trust in African talent is at the heart of Traoré's revolution. Unlike leaders who see their people as incapable of competing with the West, Traoré believes that Africa's learned minds can outshine any in the world. He has made it a priority to reform education, ensuring that young Burkinabe are equipped with the skills to drive their nation forward. New technical schools and universities are being established, offering courses in engineering, technology and entrepreneurship. Scholarships are being redirected from foreign institutions to local ones, ensuring that Africa's brightest minds stay home to build their continent. "We have doctors who can save lives, scientists who can innovate, and entrepreneurs who can create wealth," Traoré declared. "Why do we keep looking to the West when we have everything we need right here?" The admiration for Traoré is palpable, especially among African youth who see in him a leader who walks the talk. Across the continent, young people are sharing stories of Burkina Faso's transformation, from social media posts to community gatherings. In Nigeria, students have organised Traoré Talks, where they discuss his policies and brainstorm ways to push their own leaders to follow suit. In Kenya, a group of young entrepreneurs launched a campaign called Stay Home, Build Africa, inspired by Traoré's call to retain talent. Even in Zambia, where Hichilema's visa refund demand has sparked debate, young people are pointing to Traoré as proof that Africa can thrive without foreign handouts. "He's not just a president, he's a movement," one ex-user posted, echoing the sentiment of millions. The mistreatment of Africans abroad is a stark reminder of why this revolution is urgent. In Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, African workers are often subjected to grueling conditions, low wages, and even abuse. In Europe, African professionals face systemic barriers, from discriminatory hiring practices to outright racism. A Nigerian nurse in the UK recently shared her story on X, describing how she was forced to work as a cleaner despite her qualifications, simply because her African credentials were not recognised. In Israel, African migrants have faced detention and deportation, their contributions to the economy ignored. These stories are not anomalies. They are the norm for Africans who seek opportunities abroad, only to find that the better future they were promised is a mirage. Traoré's call to keep Africa's talent at home is not just about economics. It is about restoring pride and agency to a continent that has been exploited for centuries. Hichilema's bold demand and Traoré's revolutionary leadership are two sides of the same coin, a refusal to accept the status quo, a rejection of exploitation, and a vision for an Africa that stands on its own. The visa fee scandal is a wake-up call, a reminder that Africa's wealth is being drained not just through resource extraction, but through bureaucratic injustices. The $70 million lost to Schengen visa rejections could fund vocational training programs, startup incubators, or infrastructure projects that employ local talent. The £44 million lost to UK visa fees could build schools or clinics, creating opportunities for the next generation. This is not a pipe dream. It is a reality that Traoré is already making happen in Burkina Faso. If African leaders could follow Traoré's example, the continent could be transformed. Instead of importing Chinese contractors or chasing Western aid, they could invest in their own people, engineers who can build roads, doctors who can staff hospitals, and entrepreneurs who can drive economic growth. The resources are there. Africa is home to some of the world's richest deposits of gold, oil, and rare earth minerals, yet it remains one of the poorest continents because of mismanagement and exploitation. Traoré's Burkina Faso is showing that it doesn't have to be this way. By nationalizing key industries and prioritizing local labor, he is ensuring that the wealth of the land benefits its people, not foreign corporations. The time for begging is over. The time for African leaders to stop attending summits and start building their nations is now. As Traoré has shown, Africa has the talent, the resources, and the vision to surpass the West. It is time for leaders to wake up, to stop thinking backward, and to make Africa the great continent it was always meant to be. From Hichilema's defiant stand to Traoré's unstoppable revolution, the message is clear. Africa will no longer be exploited. The continent is rising, and its leaders are finally listening to the heartbeat of its people. The world had better take notice, because this is an Africa that will not be silenced, an Africa that will not be stopped, an Africa that is ready to claim its destiny. Let me say this, brothers and sisters. The bold actions of leaders like Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema and Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré signal a turning point for Africa, a moment where the continent can shed the shackles of exploitation and embrace its boundless potential. If African leaders could awaken to this vision and unite as one, the possibilities would be transformative. A united Africa, driven by a shared commitment to self-reliance and mutual empowerment, could redefine the continent's place on the global stage, turning it from a perceived beggar into a powerhouse of innovation, talent, and opportunity. Imagine a continent where borders are not barriers but bridges, where the bright minds of Burkina Faso can travel to Kenya or Tanzania to contribute their expertise, and where South African innovators work hand in hand with colleagues in Mali or Senegal. This vision of intra-African mobility would unleash a tidal wave of opportunity. Engineers from Burkina Faso could design sustainable infrastructure in Nairobi, doctors from South Africa could strengthen healthcare systems in Bamako, and tech entrepreneurs from Senegal could launch startups in Dar es Salaam. By fostering free movement and collaboration, African nations could create millions of jobs, harnessing the continent's vast human capital to drive economic growth and innovation. A united Africa would mean that the $70 million lost to Schengen visa rejections and the £44 million drained by UK visa fees could be redirected to fund regional initiatives, vocational training programs, cross-border trade networks, or Pan-African universities that nurture the next generation of leaders. Instead of exporting talent to the West or East, where African professionals often face discrimination and exploitation, a united continent would create a vibrant ecosystem where skills are valued and rewarded at home. The textile factories thriving in Burkina Faso could supply markets in Nigeria, the agricultural innovations in Kenya could feed communities in Ghana, and the renewable energy projects in Morocco could power industries in Ethiopia. This is not a dream, it is a reality within reach if leaders embrace the courage and vision of Traoré. Such unity would dismantle the beggar's narrative that has long plagued Africa. No longer would leaders need to attend endless summits in foreign capitals, seeking crumbs of aid or approval. A united Africa would negotiate as an equal on the global stage, leveraging its collective resources. gold, diamonds, cobalt, and the ingenuity of its 1.4 billion people to demand respect and fair treatment. The visa fee scandal exposed by Hichilema would be a relic of the past, replaced by a system where Africans move freely within their continent, building wealth and opportunity together. The world would see Africa not as a charity case, but as a continent of creators, innovators, and builders. Captain Traoré's revolution in Burkina Faso shows what is possible when a leader believes in their people. His initiatives have created thousands of jobs, empowered local talent, and proven that Africa can thrive without foreign handouts. If this model were scaled across the continent through regional cooperation, shared infrastructure, and harmonized policies, the impact would be staggering. Young Africans would no longer risk their lives crossing the Mediterranean or face humiliation abroad. They would find purpose and prosperity in their own backyard. A united Africa would be a beacon of hope, a continent where every citizen from Cape Town to Cairo contributes to a shared destiny. The time for division is over. The time for African leaders to wake up and unite is now. By embracing Traoré's fearless vision and Hichilema's demand for justice, Africa can build a future where its talent stays home, its resources benefit its people, and its voice commands respect. This is the Africa of tomorrow, a united, thriving continent that stands tall not as a beggar but as a global leader shaping its own path to greatness.